All right, guys. Can you guys all hear me? Thumbs up if you can. Awesome. All right, it's 7 o'clock, so let's get started. Welcome to our Westside Real Estate Meetup hosted by WNN Properties. Time is our most valuable asset, and I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And before we begin, I just want to disclose that this meeting will be recorded and be posted online. So if you want to watch it again later, that's fantastic. And if you want to share it with your friends, that's even better. So please feel free to do so. And we also encourage everyone to join our Facebook page. You could just search it by search Westside Real Estate Meetup page. And you can also join our email group at westsiderealestatemeetup@gmail.com. And this email is just to send out reminders for our meetups. And we won't be advertising or soliciting anything. And for those who are new here, my name is Young, and I'll have the honor to start us off tonight. And just a little bit about myself, I'm a buy and hold investor using the BRRRR strategy in the Kansas City market. I've completed 2 full BRRRRs so far and currently working on my 3rd rehab, which I'm definitely going through some growing pains at this moment. But that's another story, and I can share that maybe later during our breakout session. And like many of us, I'm a full-time worker striving to achieve financial freedom through real estate investing so that I can have the freedom to spend time with my family and the loved ones, and also to be able to provide for my parents financially. And that's a little bit about myself. And we also have Brandon Rabe here, who is our co-host, and he'll be introducing our guest speaker for the night and lead our networking session. Speaking of which, our networking session will be right around 8 o'clock. So please stick around, until we're able to have more open and in-person meetups. This will be the platform that we'll be using to get into smaller groups so that we can talk about what we learned and be able to bring value to each other. So please stick around to the end if you can. And what's going on, man, Brandon?
Hey, what's up, Young? Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you. I definitely feel your pain with that GC thing you're going through. So,
Oh,
but
yeah.
this is a part of it, right?
Yes.
Like Young mentioned, I'm the other co-host of Westside Meetup. My name is Brandon Rabe, and if you folks don't already know, I'm also a buy and hold investor, investing in the Midwest using the BRRRR strategy, and I'm also a full-time employee striving for financial freedom. I want to get to that time freedom so I can spend time with my family, do meaningful work, volunteer at my church more. Um, so yeah, glad you guys could join us tonight. And tonight, we're in for a special treat. We got our very own Jin Lim sharing tonight about how he calculates his deals and his comparison of investing here locally versus out of state in his market. Jin started his real estate investing journey on Oahu while serving active duty in the military and took a course on how to fix and flip houses. Before ending active duty service and moving back to the mainland, he was able to wholesale 1 property. Once moving back to the mainland, he pivoted and started looking into buying cash flowing rental properties. Today, Jin is successfully using the BRRRR strategy to invest in residential real estate in the Kansas City market. And he's also an advisor with WNN Properties. So he's mentoring other investors to implement the BRRRR strategy out in KC. So I'm excited for tonight. And without further ado, I'd just like to bring up Jin Lim to hear what he has to share about investing in different types of markets. What's up, Jin? How you doing?
All right. Hey. Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that intro. So yeah, no, today I wanted to talk about just the different markets, right? So we have expensive markets, we got cheap markets, and just wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about those differences and how it all works, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I got a super extra presentation to share with you guys, and I'm sure you guys see it. Yep. So if you don't see it, just yeah, okay. Anyways, like I said, I'm going to be talking about the differences, right? High cost of living area versus low cost of living areas, right? Investing in real estate. So with that being said, my controls aren't working. There we go. A quick self intro. As Brandon said earlier, I did start in Hawaii, and I started just by going to networking events. And when I was talking to people and meeting all these people, I quickly found out that literally everyone was flipping houses, like everyone. And no one was doing anything else, right? No one was wholesaling. No one was doing anything else. They were just flipping houses full time or on the side. After I got out of the military, I moved back to Virginia, where I'm from. And of course, I started networking over there. Over in Virginia, I met more flippers and I actually met some wholesalers, right? Some people also own rentals. They were doing a little bit of everything over in Virginia. When I moved back to Virginia, I actually pivoted towards rentals myself. And that's when I started investing in Kansas City. I started working with an experienced investor in that market and just piggybacked off their experience and started buying rentals, started buying BRRRRs specifically out in the Kansas City market. And so the reason I wanted to bring this up is that no matter where I went, right, across the United States, I met people investing in real estate and they were all making money, right? Whether it be here in Hawaii or in California or whatever state on the west side, over in, that central part, right? Texas, Kansas, Missouri, blah, blah, blah. And then I met people, North Carolina, South Carolina, and then DC and Maryland. So everywhere you look, right, people are investing in real estate and they're all making money one way or another, regardless of how expensive or how cheap that market is. So when we look at real estate and how to make money in it, it can actually be boiled down to 4 different ways that we make money. And the first way is through appreciation. In short, appreciation is just increased value over time, right? When you buy something, when you buy a house specifically, we hope that the value of that home will go up over time. And that's how, a lot of people build wealth through real estate. Another way through appreciation, there's forced appreciation, right? So more specifically, you're flipping a house and you're doing some renovations to bring up the value of that home to force that appreciation. If you were in the commercial, you do something like reducing your expenses and increasing your rents in order to force that appreciation, right? So the next way I want to talk about was just regular cash flow, right? If you own rental properties, cash flow is simply the income left over after subtracting your gross rents and from your expenses. So, your expenses will be your mortgage, it'll be your capital expenditures, your management, repairs, and something else, and I forgot, but it's all good. The point is that cash flow is your rent minus your expenses. The next thing is if you own a rental property, you also get this thing called principal paydown, right? Your tenants are paying down your mortgage, which then in turn increases the equity you have in a property, right? And so that's the number 3. And then the last one is tax savings, right? A lot of people should know that there are a lot of tax benefits when it comes to investing in real estate. I'm sure all of us are familiar with the 1031 exchange, where we can take the gains, right? The gains on that property and kind of forego paying the taxes, the income gained on that. There's a specific word. Either way, capital gains tax, that's what I'm talking about. So you can actually defer your capital gains tax for an indefinite period of time, right? If you're investing in real estate. Another way to save some taxes, right? Again, real quick, I'm not a CPA, so you should actually talk to a CPA about this specific thing to get your exact, answer on how you can save money on taxes through real estate. But another way is through depreciating your properties, right? If you did some renovations, if you have a mortgage, if you have, any kind of repairs that you had to do while you own this property, you can actually use that and the second you stop flipping a house is when you stop making money, right? It's basically you're giving yourself another job if you are a full-time house flipper. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. If your passion is flipping houses, then so be it. Go ahead and flip houses all you want. Another reason why I think cash flow is king is because we actually take advantage of those 4 ways that we make money in real estate, right? We take advantage of the appreciation. If you're a savvy investor, you can also take advantage of that forced appreciation, right? Even when doing rentals, you take advantage of the cash flow. You take advantage of your tax benefits, right? The money you can save on taxes. And then, of course, you have the principal pay down, right? Because your tenants are hopefully paying down your mortgage. And ultimately, cash flow, grants you some time freedom. And in my opinion, having that freedom of time is the ultimate form of wealth, right? So if I were to have enough cash flow to cover my basic expenses, I can stop working if I wanted to, right? Stop working a W-2 job, right? If I wanted to pursue another passion project, I can go and do that while still maintaining, a basic standard of living, right? And so that's my personal reasons why I pivoted from trying to flip here in Hawaii to investing specifically in cash flowing rental properties over in Kansas City. So with that, let's go ahead and pivot to how to make money in Hawaii. If you look at that picture, that is a picture of me in one of that wholesale deal that Brandon was talking about. It was a hoarder house. And let's talk about this one real quick. So this house was sold to another investor, an actual flipper. And if I recall correctly, this house was purchased from the seller for about $400,000. Now, I am not a flipper, but I can only assume that the cost to flip this house was closer to $200,000. And it was a lot of work that needed to be done on this, right? So if I actually look back at the MLS listing, and it was actually sold for $855,000 on the market, right? So very quickly, you can assume that you have about $200K in profit. That's pretty good. Wow, right? But let's say you wanted to buy a cash flowing rental property here in Hawaii. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So your typical 3-2, 1,200 square foot home in Honolulu is going to cost you about $900,000. It will rent for about $3,000 a month. And your mortgage expense, or your PITI, right? It stands for your principal, your interest, taxes, and insurance. That's your mortgage payment. It's going to run you about $4,000 a month. Your other expenses, like your management fee, if you have one, your capital expenditures, your maintenance repairs, and your vacancies, that'll run you about $750 a month. So your total cash flow, if you were to buy a rental property here on Oahu, at least, will actually be negative $1,750 a month. And that's kind of terrible. So let's flip that, right? We're talking about high versus low cost of living markets. So we're obviously going to pivot to Kansas City, right? Where I'm actively investing in. So if you wanted to be a flipper in Kansas City, you can buy a house over there for about $45,000. You can put about $50,000 in there, and you can sell that house for about $125K. Not bad. Profit $35K, meh, right? After we saw the $200K profit over in Hawaii, it's like $35,000 for, 4, 5, 6 months of work. You're like, how many do you have to do over in Kansas City in order to make, the amount of money you make from one Oahu flip? Which, by the way, I need to say, the Hawaii flip, that $200K profit is very rare. It's more closer to $100,000. So, but even then, right, the estimated profit from a Kansas City flip, how many do you have to do here, over in Kansas City in order to match your average Oahu flip, right? So in my opinion, it's meh. But if you're to buy a cash flowing rental property over in Kansas City, right, keeping with the same 3-2, you can buy something like that for about $150,000. That house could rent out for $1,400 a month. Again, your mortgage expense at $650 per month. And then your other expenses, $420 a month. And you actually cash flow $230 a month. And to us, at least to me, it's not bad. Even this guy right here at the bottom, he's saying, hey, not bad. So I want to talk about cash flowing in Hawaii, right? Is it possible to cash flow in Hawaii? And the short answer to that is yes, right? It's very obvious you can, because if we look on Zillow, on Craigslist, there are many people who own rental properties already, right? So if these people are owning rentals, how are they cash flowing in Hawaii? Well, first of all, it could have been someone that just owned that property for a long time, right? Maybe they bought it a long time ago and never sold it and just moved out, bought their next one, and then rented their previous one out, right? Um, Another thing that I've seen is people, wealthy people, just buying houses with huge down payments or just buying it outright in cash, right? And so if someone were to do that, right? Let's say someone bought just a house for $900,000 cash and it rented out for $3,000 a month. You still have that 700 something dollars in expenses, right? It's not the best ROI, right? For $900,000, I can think of better places to put it, like Kansas City, that'll get me more cash flow than, you know, whatever, $2,300 a month, right? After your expenses. Another way that I've seen people cash flow in Hawaii is house hack, right? As a member of the military, I have met quite a few people who have used their VA loans. They bought a house in Hawaii and they lived in one room while renting out the 2-3 other bedrooms that they had in the house. The downside to that, though, is you live with roommates, right? For me, I live by myself. It's great here. I've lived with roommates in the military, and I've had bad roommates and good roommates, but I'd rather not deal with it, right? So you kind of decrease your quality of life in order to just cash flow over in Hawaii, right? And the latest thing is the BRRRR strategy, right? The strategy that I'm using over in Kansas City. And so for those of you who are not familiar with the BRRRR strategy, it just stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. So if I were to buy something, right, we're hopefully buying something that requires some work, right? So we can buy it for under market value, and then we go ahead and do that forced appreciation, right? We rehab that property to force the appreciation in there, which then we move on to the next portion. Once it's all renovated and beautiful, we find the tenant, they rent it out. And then after that, because we own this property free and clear, we'd go to the bank and ask for a cash out refi. Hopefully the bank will look at your property and say, okay, now this property is worth 120, 150, whatever it is, right? If you bought it for 45, 50, you're hoping for, 120, 150, whatever. And at that point, they'll give you cash back up to 75% of the total value of that home. And so with that, you should be able to pull all of your cash back out. Not all of it, most, if not all of it. And then you can go ahead and just take that cash and then just repeat it. So now you're just growing your portfolio much faster, right? And so in Hawaii, I know exactly 3 people that are doing some sort of BRRRR strategy. And the reason I only know 3 people, they keep in mind, they only own maybe like 1 BRRRR property. And so BRRRR deals are rare in Hawaii, right? Especially with the profit margins when it comes to flipping. Most of the times it's just better to sell as an exit strategy, right? BRRRR deals only work for those that are like multiple units on one lot, right? Or if it's like a triplex or quad, that's when the BRRRR strategy can really shine here in Hawaii. So cash flow in Hawaii, yes, it's possible, right? But why do all that work when you could just go to somewhere like Kansas City, right? Where it's already a cash flow market. If we take advantage of the BRRRR, there's endless opportunities basically out in Kansas City, right? So not just Kansas City, but other low cost of living markets, there are going to be plenty of deals to be had, right? And so unlike Hawaii, where you need to look for a very specific kind of property that is really tough to get because people who own those properties are going to hold them, because why would they get rid of that if it's cash flowing, right? Another thing about lower cost of living markets is you have a lower barrier to entry, right? And with that, you reduce your risk, right? And it's much easier to get in when it comes to raising private funds, right? Over versus Hawaii, where you got to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. In Kansas City, you need to raise maybe $100,000 on average. So that's a lot easier. And then going back to the risk, right? With the lower cost of entry, you can make mistakes and still afford it, right? You can make a 10, 15, $50,000 mistake and recover from that much faster than you would if you were to try to do something here in an expensive market. And one mistake could cost you potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a lot safer, right, than Hawaii. And again, right, using the BRRRR, we're taking advantage of all four. More specifically, we're taking advantage of that forced appreciation, right, and cash flow. And those other two, right, the pay down of your mortgage and then also the tax benefits, that just comes with any kind of investing. But you're taking advantage of all four of those, which is going to be awesome, right? So this actually concludes my very short presentation on high cost of living versus low cost of living. The whole point I wanted to make in this presentation, though, is that you can make money in any real estate market, regardless of how expensive or how cheap it is, right? But that specifically, the cost of the real estate in that market will dictate your strategy on how to make that happen. So that's that. Again, my name is Jin Lim. You can follow me over at JinYLim_. You need the underscore because some other jerk took the one without the underscore. And then if you don't like Instagram or don't like social media in general, you can just email me at jin.lim@kaneacapital.com. That's it. Got any questions?
All right. Thank you, Jin, for sharing this. I know this was a really good topic. This I shared with some of you guys before. I think when I first attended this Westside Real Estate Meetup, this was the topic that was shared by CJ at that time. And this is the one that made the most sense to me, like, because I'm a logical person, right? I'm just looking left and right. Hawaii market versus the Midwest market, right? And just the numbers made so much more sense, knowing that I wanted to get into more of a rental game versus flipping or wholesaling. So yeah, thank you so much for breaking this down, how one can achieve financial freedom with flipping in higher cost market, cost of living markets versus through rental markets passively in the lower cost of living market. So thank you again for sharing that. I will go into some questions that I've came up with, and we'll go over some of the other questions that comes up in the chat. So before we get to that, I want to bring up about breakout session one more time. So around 8 o'clock after our education and Q&A sessions, we will be having our breakout sessions. We'll probably have two, and within that room there will be maybe 4, 5, 6 people in each room so that we can actually be able to be more intimate and be able to share what we're going through and what we learned. So yeah, I just want to share that before we go on to our Q&As. So let me start with this. Okay, well, let's start with the question that Rosie asked. What's the best place to look for in low cost of living listings? Rosie, are you talking about like what platforms we're looking for, or what markets, or?
Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. That's someone else. But so how to identify low cost of living markets? Is that what it was, or?
Not 100% sure. Let me see if Rosie can clarify.
Oh, here we go. I was trying to unmute. No, just what platform is the best place to look? Because I mean, there's so many cities in the Midwest. Like, how do you Zillow? I don't know.
Yeah. So for me personally, I actually use Redfin a lot to look for properties on the market specifically, right? So for me, I specifically look. I mean, I'm already looking in Kansas City, right? So I'm not looking for any other areas at the time. Right now at this time, so it's very easy, right? I just use Redfin and look in Kansas City, right? Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri. And I know which areas to kind of avoid and which areas are good for rental investing. So, yeah, so Redfin is one of the ways to go about looking at actual listings, right? Or any kind of MLS um, website. So you can use Zillow if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. If you know exactly what market you want to be in, you can even reach out to a realtor out there, right? And set up your criteria, and they'll just send you emails every day with properties that are on the market that fit that specific criteria that you specify. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, and just in addition to what Jin just mentioned, you want to look for markets that have pretty good rent to, the value of the property ratio. So we often talk about that 1% rule, which means, for example, if a house is worth $100,000, with 1% rule, if it rents out for $1,000 per month, you're probably in a pretty good rental market. So that's one way to kind of identify different markets too. And you can easily like Google around, look at bigger pockets to see which markets are good. You're looking at some trends like the employee or like how much jobs are available, if there are different sectors of the job, population growth and all of that. And using your realtors, using the MLS, Zillow, Trulia, all of those to kind of identify the prices, school ratings, crime rates, all of that. You're looking into all of those too. So I hope that answers your questions. So yeah, let me go ahead with Wiley's question. Hi, Wiley. What qualities do you look for in a low cost of living area?
I think you literally just answered that in here. He did say that, right? He just said, "Thanks, hey
Oops.
guys. You guys just answered my question." So,
I'm
yeah.
sorry about that.
Hope you guys were taking notes because it's already gone.
And also, if you guys can just go on YouTube, go to our YouTube page. I think Henry Travis also mentioned about how to identify different rental markets. So you guys can refer back to that on our YouTube page. So let me ask Matthew's question. Can you explain the dialogue that you have with contractor who quotes the rehab?
Yeah. So first of all, to be completely honest with you, I have a full-time job, so I don't manage my own rehabs. I actually have a property manager who just goes ahead and handles all that for me. But the question, right? How do you know that that quote is accurate or reasonable is a very good question. The best way to do it is during your inspection period, right? When you have a property under contract, you should have about 10 to 14 days, ideally, for you to go into that property and inspect it and make sure it's good to go, right? Because during that time, you can uncover some heinous things. So, an example of that is one of the properties I'm actually going through right now. They said on the seller's disclosure it has dry rot, and so we're like, okay, whatever. We just fix that. Bada bing, bada boom, no problem, right? I just estimated the amount for what it would cost to repair a deck or something. During the actual inspection of that property, however, is when I discovered that was actually termite damage. So I was like, oh, that's great. And so the inspector actually found termite damage all the way down to the foundation, and it was very, very sketchy in its current condition. So I went ahead and had the general contractor, right? My project manager sent the general contractor out there to quote it out, right? And was able to get that quote, right? And then go to the seller and kind of renegotiate the price. But to answer your question, how do I know that quote to fix that is accurate or reasonable, right? If you get a good property inspector, they're going to have a good estimate for what it's going to cost to fix these kinds of things, right? That inspector literally told me, hey, you're looking about 10 to 15 grand to fix this thing. I said, okay, cool. And what did I see on the contractor's quote? 10 grand. Cool, right? I didn't need any more confirmation than that. I was confident with that and moved on, right? But if you really, really wanted to go ahead and confirm that you're not getting scammed, right? Because you're an out-of-state investor, you can go ahead and send multiple general contractors out there, right? Ideally, you have your realtor who is on your team and is available to go out and meet that general contractor whenever you have that walkthrough scheduled. So have them walk through, but you got to have a set statement of work, right? So that you can't just send someone out there and be like, how much will this cost? They're going to be like, what do you want to do? Right. So make sure that you have a very well-defined statement of work to hand out to all these general contractors so that when they come in, they can give you the most accurate quote. So that's the best way. That's the only way, honestly, to really, really make sure. So does that answer your question, Matt? All right, sweet.
All right. And we have, let's see. Jin, do you conduct all of these inspections from Hawaii?
I do not. So I just touched on it, right? I hired a property inspector to go ahead and inspect these properties, right? Because even if I were there, for example, if I was in Kansas City and I got this property under contract, I'm not going to go and inspect the property, right? Because tell you the truth, I don't know what I'm looking at. I can look at it and be like, yes, that's a wall. Yes, this is a floor, but I don't know what I'm looking for, right? If there's like a stain on the wall, is that mold? Is that asbestos? I don't know. So I'm going to leave it up to my professional, right? I hired this dude. He's licensed. He's going to be able to walk through and tell me exactly what's wrong, right? He even brings a ladder and gets on my freaking roof and looks and inspects every inch of that roof to make sure, it's in good condition and everything. So for me, I don't do any of these inspections. All I need to do is schedule it with my guy. I just go on his website, book it on his calendar, or give him a call, right? And set a time, and they just go out there and inspect that property.
All right, thank you. And Blaze asked, do you use a tool to estimate your numbers?
Yeah, I actually see 2 questions from him. I'm going to answer both of them. Did you use your termite clause for treatment paid by seller? No, we just asked for money off, right? Because it was not in the seller's disclosure, we were able to renegotiate, and I was able to walk away if I didn't get what I was looking for, right? The quote said $10K, and I asked for $25,000 off, and we were able to get it for $15K off, which was a win in my book, right? It was already a good deal, and we just made it better by getting an additional $5K off, right, from the estimate. So do you use a tool to estimate your numbers? Yes, I use a tool. I use a rehab calculator that's made specifically for the Kansas City market, right? And this it's just an Excel spreadsheet with just a list of line items, right? I just look at the pictures because I'm here in Hawaii. I'm not going to walk over to Kansas City and check things off. I'm just going to go down and look through the listing pictures and check off the things off this rehab calculator, and that'll give me a pretty accurate estimate of what the rehab is. Ideally, I'll be within 5 to 6K plus or minus the actual cost.
All righty. And we have Chris asking, is your property inspector paid per job, or is he like a property manager where he's paid off with an interest or in a percentage?
Yeah, so my property inspector, right, is paid per job, because as much as I would love to just have a constant flow of properties under contract, I don't, right? So I just send them out per property that I get under contract, right? And I pay him, several hundreds of dollars to go through the property and do a very thorough inspection of that property. So yeah, no, it's not like a property manager where they're paid a percentage, right? Because that property manager is going to be there at all times, right? If the toilet breaks at 2 a.m, they're not calling me, thankfully. They're calling the property manager, right? So that they're entitled to that percentage of gross rents. So yeah. I see a question from Vlad too. I think we skipped over. You mind if I hit
go
that
for
real
it.
quick? What's being your relationship with tenants? I'm guessing it means what are my relationships with my tenants? I've never seen them. I've never talked to them. I don't plan on ever talking to them because I'm not the property manager. So again, right, as a rental investor, I want to be as hands off. I want to be as passive as possible. I don't want to deal with the tenant. I don't want them to know who I am. So I'd rather just anything that's going on, I want them to contact the property manager, right? That's why I'm paying the property manager in the first place, right? To deal with any issues that come up. And and they're the ones that are going to reach out to the tenant in case anything happens, right? If they pay late or they miss a payment completely and they just refuse to pay or something, then while it is my problem if they don't pay, it's on the property manager to go ahead and start the process of trying to get that payment or work out a payment plan or start that eviction process, while I get to sit in Hawaii and sip on gin and tonics on the beach.
Is that a joke with your name on it?
No, I actually love gin and tonics. If you ever meet me in person, if you buy me a gin and tonic, great. Or an old fashioned. So.
Oh, not old fashioned. No, thank you. Speaking of property manager, let's talk about who's in your team. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. So in my team, I have the realtor. I have multiple realtors actually. I have the property manager. I have the GC, which I don't really interface with directly because again, I use someone else, a project manager to handle all of that. So those are my guys on my team, right? The project manager, the property manager, and the realtors.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I have some other questions. So, we were talking about like investing here, you could see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But investing out of state, you don't see the property. You can't touch it. I mean, you could see the photos, but that's all you get. So, what do you think stops other people? Like these people are actually having these fears. Like how did you overcome that to be able to invest out of state?
Yeah, I kind of get that because I was in the same boat, right? I remember when I was first starting researching real estate, I was actually deployed. I don't want to say deployed. I was sitting in Japan. It's not really a deployment. So I was in Japan and I was talking to some friends and one of the friends was like, why don't you just start now? I was like, no, man, we're in Japan. What are you talking about? He's like, dude, who cares? You can still buy real estate while you're in a foreign country. And I was like, no, I need to be there in order to do it. Right. And it wasn't until this was like when I was first starting off. Right. So I had that same feeling of I needed to be in that market. I needed to see what I was going to buy and all of that stuff. Right. And it wasn't until later on that I realized that when I was walking through these properties, I don't know what I'm looking at. I can't tell you, like, is that just dry rot or is that termite damage? Is that, black mold or is that just a dirt mark, So again, having a professional to go and walk through is your best bet, right? Having the property inspector who is licensed and trained in looking for specific things that are wrong with that property, that's your best way to properly inspect that property, right? Having the general contractor walk through to quote out your rehab project based off the scope of work, that's the best way, right? I can't tell you how much I'm going to pay someone to lay down flooring because I'm not a general contractor, right? So yeah, I think that's what got me over that barrier, if you will, right? Going from, okay, I need to see, touch it, lick it, whatever, in order to invest in real estate, to, hey, who cares? Even if I was there, I wouldn't know what the heck I'm looking at. So all I know is the numbers, right? If it makes sense on paper, right? The ones and zeros need to make sense before me to buy it. And then now it's on to the actual professionals to go out and complete my due diligence and make sure that property is in its advertised state and, confirm how much it is going to actually cost to renovate that property.
Yeah, definitely. I think as an investor, you have to be very logical. Don't have your emotions attached to anything. That just kind of murks the picture. And you may not be purchasing a good property just because if you love the paint of the exterior, that's just a color, it doesn't mean anything. So yeah, you got to make sure you know the numbers. And to me, Midwest makes so much more sense than here. So I'm going to continue to do that, whether I live here or move back to the South. I'm from the South, by the way. Yeah, I'm always going to be investing in these cash flowing markets. So awesome. Let's see here. Actually, so you've done a couple properties now, yeah? So can you tell me how you felt going into your first property?
Going into
Your
my
very
first property, man, to tell you the truth, I was scared but excited at the same time, right? Because it's weird. We're so okay with buying a car that's worth whatever amount, right? I'm like, okay, cool. We just drop the money, right? But then when it comes to buying something like a house, I'm gonna tell you right now, buying a my first house was $45,000, right? I will happily go and buy a car for $45,000 any day. I was like, just that's fun, right? But then all of a sudden, buying a house for $45,000, it was like, right? Because I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done it before, right? And so, to me, I had a lot of anxiety for my first house, right? I was still going over the mental hurdle of I'm not in Kansas City. I can't lick the side of the house. Like, how am I going to buy this thing, right? But I had to get over it. Like, okay, who cares? I remember in Hawaii when I was walking through these rundown houses. I don't know what I'm looking at, right? So again, like even if I was there, I wouldn't know what I'm looking at. So just trust the professionals. I'm paying them, just trust them, and they should tell me what's up, right? So again, buying my first property, nerve-wracking, right? And I think that's kind of standard across the board with any new investor when they look back at, or any experienced investor, I'm sorry, looking back at their first property, right? And so at the same time, I was very excited, right, to get this thing under contract, because I was, again, right, in my presentation, I said I was working with a very experienced investor that had my back, right? He reviewed the deal and he said it was a good deal. There's nothing to worry about. I'll hold your hand. I said, sweet, let's do this. If you say it's good, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, so that actually alleviated a lot of my fears, right? And so thinking back at it, if it wasn't for that individual, then I wouldn't be here today, because I would still be watching YouTube videos and reading books and going to networking events and dreaming of investing in real estate rather than actually taking the action steps in order to get my first one. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. I was so scared of getting into my first property, but it's the best thing I did, honestly. The best thing I did. It's been doing well for me, and I think it'll continue to do well for me. And you learned so much through it. Whether it was a good deal or not, the fact that you did it, right? You're just getting so much value from just taking those actions. Yeah, and you're just being able to apply what you learned from the first property to the second property, and then you're applying that to the third property, thinking that you know what's going on, and then I'm just going through some contractor pains right now. So yeah, you never stop learning. It doesn't always get better, but just taking that initial step and someone being able to kind of hold your hand and walk along, and then they just kind of slowly, like when you're bike training, you're on that, you're on the training wheels, and then they slowly take you off and then just push you, and then you just kind of take off there. So we're excited for what's to come, man. So I shared a little bit about my very vague my growing pains. Do you have any growing pains that you can share with us?
Yeah. So this year I've been really ramping up my investing endeavors, if you will. And it started off with not having enough deals, right? Very competitive market with a trying to work off the MLS and just working with realtors and things like that. And then it got to the point where, I was started to network with wholesalers, joining Facebook groups and all that stuff. And a lot of these wholesalers they're not, I mean, I don't want to poop on them, but they're sending deals out that a lot of the time don't make sense, right? Because they know the BRRRR strategy, and then they're like, oh, we can squeeze a lot of money out of these people who are just willing to buy this and, leave 50 grand of equity or something after the refi or something. So um, my growing pain was trying to fish upstream, if you will. I started investing heavily in off-market stuff. I'm investing right now into pay-per-click advertising and search engine optimization for a website for people looking to sell their properties for cash. And right now, my growing pain is trying to get something under contract, to be honest with you. Talking to people who are in a position that they're distressed sellers looking to sell, they actually reach out to a lot of different individuals like myself who click multiple ads and submit information across multiple different websites. And so I'm not the only one they're talking to, which is unfortunate, right? So there's still competition even when it comes to off-market stuff. And I would offer one number and then they'd be like, oh, well, this guy offered like 20 grand more. And I know my numbers. I'm like, congratulations, that's a great deal. I'm really happy you got that. And then I lose it. There's nothing I can do at that point. And so my growing pain right now is just trying to get more deals off market. So, but I'm working on it. I've met up with some local guy who's also doing PPC and saw his system, saw his whole process, and I was just blown away. So I'm in the process of basically taking that and mimicking it. And hopefully I can make it a lot more streamlined, a lot better, and get something under contract.
Yeah, it sure is slim picking nowadays, but hopefully that new system that you're going to implement, it's going to work out for you. We have a couple more questions in the chat. So Jerry asked, is your project manager tied to your property manager or a separate entity?
My specific project manager is a separate entity. Full disclosure, it's CJ Kallio. He's sitting right there on my screen right here. He was also the experienced investor. No air quotes. He's literally the experienced investor that I worked with in order to buy my my first property. And so, yeah, I use him for everything, and I still work a full-time job. So when it comes to that specific portion of the project management, I just use him. And I pay him a percentage of the total rehab costs to handle my renovations. So in terms of having a project manager tied to your property manager, that's something I've heard of as well. There are plenty of property managers out there that have established relationships with general contractors, right? And they will actually go ahead and manage your project for you. So it works out in the end because that property manager is going to take management of that property. So they're going to make sure that general contractor is not cutting corners and is doing the right thing and making sure that they're on schedule, right? Before you're just wiring out, tens of thousands of dollars to this person out on the mainland. So, yeah, if you find a property manager who has a project management service, definitely a huge benefit over those that don't.
That's who I'm using right now, actually. After I part ways with my previous contractor, I'm actually going with my current property manager, who's also project managing with the contractor that she has. So, our plan is to, she's going to go in like once a week, take photos, making sure, like exactly what you said, Jin. I guess that's an advantage for sure, because they're going to end up managing that property. So they want to reduce as much headaches as possible ahead of time. So that's who I've been using. So I'm going to see how it goes. It's my first time with that person. So I'm really excited to find out what's going to happen. And if things go well, we will see. I'll let you guys know. All right. I've got another question here from Matthew. Could you break down the expenses and the theoretical example of a first property purchase in KCMO before, during, and after purchase?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a theoretical example of a first property purchase. I can just go over my first one, like actual non-theoretical. Does that work? Instead of like trying to pull numbers out of my butt or something. So again, right, my first property, I bought it for $45,000. We estimated a $38,000 renovation and estimated a $115K ARV, right? The actual renovations turned out to be $41,000. We found that the previous owner did their own electrical wiring or something, and we didn't find it until we opened the drywall, right? And so we had to deal with that. And at the same time, since we're redoing everything, we were like, you know what? Let's just take down this wall that separates the kitchen and the living room. And so we went ahead and just did that, right? The good thing about that was we actually had a contingency built into our rehab, right? So that $38K, we added, $3,800 to the estimated rehab, and that $41K was within the contingency that we had. So I had already raised the private funds for both the purchase and the rehab for it, that full amount plus the contingency. So I didn't have to pull that out of my own savings or anything like that, which was great. And so when it came to refinancing it, that's a fun story actually. Because when I got the when I got the appraisal done, they came back with $78,000 or something. And I was like, what? That's insane. And so I freaked out. I sent it over to CJ and I was like, dude, what do I do? I'm going to, cash out refi, 75% of 78K. But no, we sat down, we looked at it, and 4 of the 5 properties that the appraiser had put down was a foreclosed home or something that was auctioned off, right? It was a bank-owned property. And so when it came to fighting back the appraiser, all I had to do was literally just use his own properties that he said and look at the market on the MLS and look at what it sold for. Literally a couple weeks before and a couple months before, these things were selling for like 130, whatever, 125, whatever, right? So I was like, whoa, this is actually a lot higher than our 115. And so that's all we did, right? I got the comps of the same properties that he just put on the appraisal report. And I said, hey, first of all, you put these, auction properties on there. And then second of all, these actually luckily just sold for much more than $78,000. So try again, sir. And so he came back with $121,000. And so that actually was more than what I expected. And this was what I call a home run of a deal, right? So I was able to cash out refi 75% of that. Actually, I didn't even do that. I just wanted to repay my lenders, my private money lenders. So we kept it at the 115 ARV and just did a cash out refi at that amount. And I was able to pay back all my lenders plus their interest. It was a home run of a deal. Right? I was able to cash out refi everything, which was great. And I now have built-in equity because the bank had appraised it for $121,000. So, yeah.
Those are some nice numbers. I'm glad you rebutted. If not, you would have lost, hate to say
my
lost,
first year ROI, maybe my second year ROI wouldn't have been too hot. But again, right? Let's say, for example, that did happen, right? Oh, that sucks. But again, right? We're buy and hold investors, emphasis on hold, right? If we were flippers, we'd be screwed, right? If that was our only exit strategy, then we'd be screwed. But thankfully, in the Kansas City market, it is a rental market. So even if I only got that 78K appraisal, I'm going to, leave some money in the deal that first year. But over time, right, we're still banking on those 4 ways to make money in real estate. We're going to bank on that, a long-term appreciation, right? We're going to bank on the cash flow. We're going to bank on the mortgage pay down, and then of course the tax benefits. So I can even potentially have used that that loss to spread out my tax burden over several years, because I'm pretty sure there's a limit on how much you can lose on an investment or something like that. But talk to a CPA about that. Don't ask me.
But we want to ask you. That's why you're here.
I can't.
Yeah. I was gonna say you're not losing money. You're just investing more money than you anticipated. So yeah, but your cash flow is gonna be a lot better because your mortgage payment's gonna be tiny, right? So
exactly. Yeah, and that's why I chose that, right? Because I'm not here to make money today. I'm here to build long-term wealth, which is why I decided to keep it at that amount, the original estimated amount, rather than just going ahead and pulling all the equity that I could out of it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jin. So those are all the questions we're gonna go over for the night, and Brandon will actually wrap us up for the first portion of our meetup.
Yeah, thank you, Young, and thank you again, Jin, for just coming on and talking about the differences between the two markets and even sharing your own personal journey. So, really appreciate that. And with your presentation, I really liked your little animations that helped me to stay engaged, and just really good stuff. And just to piggyback off of what Jin said earlier about how he was able to be successful investing in a market that he's never visited, right? Leveraging somebody else's expertise, seeking that mentorship. At WNN, that's what we do. If you're a newer investor, if you're kind of not sure how to get started, or you want to get into the BRRRR or passive income, not sure how, at WNN we offer mentorship for that. So feel free to check out our website, wnnproperties.com. You can schedule a call with an advisor there, and we'll hop on the phone and see if we're right fit. Yeah. If you do want to get in touch with Jin, though, just one more time, again, his Instagram, Jin Y Lim. Don't forget that underscore, so you make sure you connect with the right Jin. Or you can hit him up on email, jin.lim@koneacapital.com. All right. So, before we end tonight's meetup, I did want to mention about next month's meetup. So next month, we're going to be having a special guest. Her name is Sherry Sodetani. She's a realtor, investor, and property manager. So I think there's going to be a lot of value there to hear what she's going to have to share about property management. So don't miss it. It's going to be on the last Wednesday of next month, June 30th. If you're on the email list, you're going to get an update from us in the beginning of the month, throughout the month, and then the day of. If you're not already on the email list, shoot us an email or send us your email so that we can add you onto the email list. Don't forget to also join our Facebook group on Facebook, Westside Meetup Kapolei, and also to like our page on Facebook. And you know what? I think that's it, but don't forget, we're going to be going into breakout rooms very shortly, so please stick around. Otherwise, thank you, Jin. I think on behalf of Young and WN, I just wanted to say thank you guys for spending your time here with us. We know it's valuable, so we just appreciate it. And please stick around. We're going to be jumping into breakout rooms very, very shortly. All right. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jin.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Yeah, the presentation was great. I think we gained a lot from